Hey guys, Dustin Nguyen, and you're listening to Bat Force Radio.
Hey, this is Scott Snyder, and you're listening to Bat Force Radio.
This is Paul Dini, listening to Bat Force Radio.
This is Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman, and you're listening to Bat Force Radio, so stay tuned.
Welcome back to Bat Force Radio, the Batman and DC podcast with no limits. Thanks for joining us again, but realistically, it's not as if most of us have much else going on. We have got Bat Force Tom in California.
Hey.
And I'm Robin Cross in Canada. And beginning in 2015 and ending in 2016, I'll warn you, I'm going to take a deep breath right here because this is a long one. In 2015, 2016, the Darkside War in the pages of Justice League was one of the highlights of the New 52 era. Seeking the information they need to stop the Anti-Monitor and Darkseid from destroying Earth as they attempt to destroy each other, the League approaches Metron, hoping to use the infinite knowledge of his Mobius chair to find the solution. When Metron reveals that the chair does indeed have the information they seek, but he is not at liberty to divulge it, the League promptly removes his ass from the chair, and as they begin to discuss which of them is best suited to attempt taking his place, Batman is already plopping himself down on it. In what would become the headline of the entire arc, the chair reveals something world-changing to Batman as he tests the limits of its knowledge. We would later find out that the chair told him that 3 separate people had at times taken on the identity of his chief antagonist, the Joker. From there, we waited to find out when this revelation would be expanded upon, and soon enough the announcement was made that Darkside War creators Geoff Johns and Jason Fabok would bring us the story of the 3 Jokers. Fast forward to today, we have the release dates, we've seen the cover art, and even some preview pages, and joining us today to talk about what's coming, one of our absolute favorite artists, Jason Fabok.
Hey. Hey guys, that was a great intro.
Well, it's been so much time that has passed since Darkside War that I wanted to give a little bit of that background to listeners who maybe either didn't read it yet or don't remember it clearly, and I didn't want to make you have to go through all of it.
Yeah. It was really well written too. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you. Hopefully it helped you remember what was going on.
Yeah. I sometimes forget too.
But yeah, you have been hard at work on this for I don't even remember when you started working on it, but I can tell you because I can look up on our website that I've had this book on my pull list since July 20th, 2018.
Wow.
So you've been working on it, probably 3 years?
I think it's almost 2 years that I started it now. Yeah. Because my daughter was born, she was born 2 years ago, March. So it was shortly after or around then that I started actually working on the book. And there's a whole bunch of maybe we'll have to do, once the books are out and everything, maybe we'll have to do a behind the scenes look at all the history of this, because there's a lot of really cool a lot of ups, a lot of downs, a lot of roller coaster stuff when it came to this book. And I think we had talked about doing it even like further back than that. I mean, we hinted at it in 3 Jokers, and to tell you the truth, the original idea was right after Darkside War was done. We were going to continue on with Justice League, and the 3 Joker storyline was actually going to be part of a Justice League arc. But that's when they kind of they were doing Rebirth and they were switching to a bi-weekly schedule, and both Geoff and I didn't want to do a bi-weekly book, and that was they. It was pretty much like Justice League's going to be bi-weekly. You have no say, and so we both. I kind of said I'm not interested in doing it bi-weekly, so we both left the book, and Geoff got really busy into the movie stuff and the television stuff and all that kind of world, and he was excited to explore that, and so we kind of put this story on the back burner, and we were like, oh, we'll come back to it eventually, and then it changed, and he started to, he would I hadn't talked to him for almost like a year, and then all of a sudden he would call me and be like, hey, I got the idea. Here's the idea. It's going to be more of it's not Justice League at all. We realized that was going to be, it wouldn't work. And then we just said, let's just focus this on as a classic Batman book in that classic prestige format. Like, he kept on bringing up Killing Joke, of course. That's essentially what this book is like based upon. Really, it's like we looked at he was doing Doomsday Clock, and they were really basing everything sort of heavily around the Watchmen and how that book was structured. And so we decided, well, let's look at Killing Joke and let's kind of structure our book that same way. And then there was other ones like Batman the Cult, and books that we sort of remembered as, like Batman events that weren't, 12 issues long. They were just like these prestige series kind of one-shots almost.
Mm-hmm.
And we really got excited about that idea. And I think even originally the book was just going to be one issue. And then Jeff's like, well, we got 3 Jokers. Let's do 3 issues, So it was like, yeah, that makes sense. So it kind of evolved from there. But it's been a long time coming. But at the same time, like, we went through different phases, and we went through slow phases where I wasn't doing much drawing at all, and because I was waiting for script, and then we went through phases where it just all of a sudden went into rocket mode. I'd say really in the last year is when we really have cranked down on this thing. And I'm getting right near the end of drawing the final issue here, and the final climax of the book, and so we're in good shape, and we'll probably we're gonna have enough time. This thing's gonna be done with enough time that we'll be able to go back and reread all 3 issues before the first one even hits the stands, and we already know we're gonna go back to some of the panels here and there in issue 1 and maybe redraw them or change them because we've made a couple changes to the story. Like, we're gonna have a real opportunity to really make this thing flow as if you're reading one giant graphic novel. That's something you don't get that when you're doing a monthly book. You're really just it's like you're trying to cross a bridge or like a train track or something that they're still laying down the track as you're going.
Yeah.
This is different. This is like we're almost gonna have an entire graphic novel and then break it up into 3. So.
And that's a preferred way. As a reader, I would prefer for the things that I'm going to read to be that way. Like, I would be more comfortable knowing that the creators had that time and that ability to, when they got back to the end of the story, they had the ability to retrace their steps towards the beginning and alter things to suit the direction they had taken a little bit better.
Yeah, I definitely prefer that. I mean, there's been some slowdowns here and there where I was waiting for script, and I've gone back and redrawn pages and sequences in issue 1 that I had drawn 2 years ago. It's been 2 years, so I've gone back and I'm like, I don't like that panel, I'm gonna change it, or I figured out a different way of telling that panel a little stronger, or I don't really I want to tweak this face or change this, and so I've gone back and I've done that, but I've also found that at some point you just got to kind of let it go because you'll drive yourself nuts, think that's the good thing about like a monthly book is you're just kind of charging ahead. You have no real time to think about it, so you just go with your gut feeling. And on something like this, I think sometimes I overthink it. Like a page I've been working on, like it's been 5 days. I still haven't finished it. Like, not, and it's not because it's super detailed or anything, but it's like I'm trying to choreograph something that's really, really hard to choreograph. And I've changed the panels like a couple times. I've thrown them out. Eventually I was just like, I'm done. I'm quitting today. But I need to finish it to get onto the next part, because all of this informs what's going to happen on the next couple pages. And so I need to have it done. Like, I can't just move on. Sometimes you'll just do that. You'll just like move on. You'll be like, oh, this page is giving me trouble. I'm gonna go to a different sequence and start that just to get some momentum back up. But like the nice thing about this is because we have time, I'm able to do that. And so it's in the end, the page will be exactly how I want it, and I'll be fairly happy with it. I'm never really truly happy with anything I draw. I'll be happy enough.
And the nice thing about having this timeline to do it, and the way that you guys are working it, how issue 1 is not coming out before you've laid the groundwork for the other 2 issues. One thing that you've told me when we've spoken in person has been that your goal for this series has always been that there would be no delays. It was going to be 3 issues, 3 months, on time, no troubles with it.
Yeah, that was an important thing that we really wanted to do. And DC could have put issue 1 out months ago. They could have made it a 5-monthly book or something like that, or a tri-monthly book, or I don't know, whatever. But we were like, no, we want these books to come out, come out monthly. Actually, we had a totally different plan. I don't know if I should really say it. It was a different plan, and we actually got persuaded against it because it might have been too much. I'll just say it. What we originally wanted to do for the longest time was actually to have this book come out bi-weekly. So you get like two issues in June and then 1 in July, or one in June and 2 in July kind of thing, and make it like a really big event, like 1, 2, 3. Like you don't have to wait 2 weeks between issues. But DC decided that because it's there's a whole bunch of things that go into that, and they talked to a lot of retailers, and retailers are like, well, that might be a little too much because it's a whatever it is, $5.99 book. So it's a little bit more expensive than your normal kind of floppy issue, and so I think we made the right choice of making it a monthly book instead of the bi-weekly book. It would have been cool, but I think at the same time, I think it's going to give people a lot more time to complain about what happened in each issue online. Like that's the one thing I said to Geoff. It's like, if it was coming up bi-weekly, you'd only have to listen to people complain for 2 weeks, and then we get to move on. But now it's going to be a month. So. But yeah, I mean, it'll be exciting to see it come out. Like, well, hopefully hopefully things are back up and running by June.
Yeah.
That's just the worrisome and sad part about everything going on right now. But I think once things get back going, this book might be a nice kind of startup. When things get back, when stores are opened again, when comics are coming out. This might come out right at the right time where get people excited about collecting comics again, and so maybe it'll be a little bit of a start of a new era of comics, if you will, after post COVID comics, right? So.
Yeah, and it's a nice light at the end of the tunnel to look forward to this, like something exciting that we've all waited for, and hopefully, like you said, just as we start to get back to life, this will be something exciting to bring people back out to the comic shops again.
Yeah, for sure. We, sadly, we don't know what the future holds, but hopefully by June things will be kind of starting up again. And if they're not, then I think if not, then I know we'll just hold it until things are back up. We really want to make sure that we're going to be able to support the comic shops, and this is something that will really bring a lot of people through the doors. And we got some cool little extras we've been talking about, and little special things that we want to maybe throw into the package to make it a little bit more special to come out to the comic shop and pick this book up. But those are all things we're still kind of talking through. And I know, like right now, everybody at DC, things have kind of I wouldn't say slowed down, but nobody's in the office, so a lot of the communications are a little slower, and I'm sure this has derailed a lot of different plans. But again, we just we've got to go through all this, and hopefully we'll all come out on the other end and be really excited to read some comics and support our shops, and that's important. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even if this does suffer some delays because of what we're in the middle of right now, I think by that time, most people will have acclimated to the fact that a lot of things are being pushed back, because we're already seeing it. The new Last of Us video game is being, pushed back indefinitely at this point. The Black Widow movie has been pushed back 6 months for its release. So, we're seeing that it's affecting a lot of things, and it's understandable. Nothing that people have been working, putting their blood, sweat, and tears into for years now. Nobody wants that to come out at an inopportune time and suffer because of it.
yeah, and I like you said, like this whole thing it's nobody's fault. I mean, it's a natural virus, right? I mean, nobody has control over this, and so it's I do think that once this all passes, there's going to be a lot of excitement with people to get back out, to get back supporting their local stores, and I can really see there being a major. I almost can see there being maybe a major shift in the way that people might shop. I think that people maybe take for granted their local store and their local, mom and pop stores and things like that. We're so used to buying things off Amazon and online. I think you're going to see a lot of people. They've seen their communities go through a tough time with all this coronavirus stuff, and then I think you'll see them, wanting to really reach out and support their local stores and shop there. And I'm looking forward to the day when everything opens and I can go, blow some money on some different things, just to support local people who've been affected by this, because it affects everybody. And so, but this, like you said, hopefully this will be a nice light at the end of the tunnel for comic fans when things get back up and running.
And people are already going to be pretty excited to be able to get back out of their house again and go places, get back to normalcy. And that includes comic shops, and having something exciting that they've been looking forward to being available at that time is going to be very cool.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Now, you were talking a bit about wanting to have some special things that are still being worked on. That may cover what I wanted to ask you about here. There are solicitations, in Diamond on their database. You can see where the issue is there for order with your 2 covers that have been released. And there is also just a blank solicitation for a 1 in 25 variant cover, as well as a 1 in 100 variant cover. Is that anything you can even talk about yet, or is that still being worked on?
It's still being worked on. I don't even know what those are going to be.
I was curious because I don't remember if it was the last time you were on the show or just sometime we were talking in person. You had mentioned based on the book's lineage, its subject matter, that there was someone in particular you wanted to try to get involved on something, maybe like a variant cover. So I was sort of hoping for that.
Yeah, we actually did reach out to a couple of different artists, but in the end, I think we decided that I'm just going to tackle all the covers for this. It's, this is, I mean, things might change. But one of the artists that we wanted was unavailable, so we decided in the end I'll probably just do all the variants, or we might do something kind of, I don't know. Right now, like, we want to get issue 3 done, and then I'll probably focus on that and get those things done and get those other covers done. But yeah, we're still trying to figure it out. I didn't even know that they were going to solicit it with those extra things. Yeah. So it's kind of like, oh, surprise! Here you go, you got some more work. Like, oh, okay. So, but no, we'll come up with something. It's we wanted a kind of a look for the covers, like the way that they work together as like characters, big, bold in the face kind of thing. And so, yeah, it's kind of, it'll be interesting to see what we can come up with. I know I don't know what the 1 in 100 cover will be. Maybe we'll do something extra different or special with that. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. I have to. We kind of just put that on the back burner right now, and it's like, let's just focus on finishing issue 3, and then I'll have some time to dive into some extras. There's a whole bunch of different extras that we want to do, so hopefully we'll get the time to do them. So I think people will be really happy with some of the stuff we figured out.
Yeah, I was talking about it earlier with some friends, and they were asking about they're casual comic readers, so they know of 3 Jokers coming. But like you were saying, all this anticipation of bringing a large quantity of readers to a comic shop again, they've been asking me probably like at least once a month, is it come out yet? Has it come out yet? And I'm like, no, not yet. It will. And then it's funny because they're also kind of following like any big changes on like the main Batman title or storylines for other books. And they're like, dude, did you hear about this? Did you hear about that? And I was like, yeah, man, but none of it's going to matter after 3 Jokers. Like, I guarantee you, like 3 Jokers is the only thing I care about. And it's honestly kind of been my attitude because there's, like you were saying, you're kind of worried about the monthly gap in between issues where people are going to start complaining. There's so much of it right now with the internet, just complaints about any little thing about a storyline. But what's so freeing to me is I haven't cared about any of it, knowing that 3 Jokers is coming, and that's the only thing like I'm really gonna care about. So all these crazy like changes, all these storylines and everything, the one big thing on the horizon is 3 Jokers, and I don't mind because we've already waited a little bit more is not going to hurt anybody. So knowing that you guys are working hard on it and putting like every little detail to make sure it all adds up in the end is just kind of building the anticipation even more. So what is one thing that I guess you really can't talk about it, but is there anything that that you're like really worried about, either backlash or something that's gonna really piss people off, or things that are just gonna drive people crazy? Is there anything like that you're thinking of right now that you just can't wait for people to see?
Yeah, each issue has a real big kind of ending. Each issue has something is a great cliffhanger. Like Geoff Johns is excellent at the cliffhanger. He knows how to. Every issue I think he ever wrote has a great cliffhanger that'll lead you to the next issue, and this does that. And I think like I was mentioning before, we kind of written this thing like as if it's one giant graphic novel, really, but there are definitive like kind of 3 breaks in each issue, and I think when people read it as a whole, they'll see where everything kind of leads and weaves into each other. But those kinds of things are also like like you said, like things that'll make people angry or shocked. Like there's some shocking moments. There will be people angry with whether we do the thing that every fan wants to see or whether we do the thing that nobody expects. Somebody will be kind of angry or mad about it. Continuity people will probably be all over us because we're really, this book right from the beginning, we set out to just tell a story that has a beginning, middle, and end. That you don't need, like really, you only really, like if you've read Killing Joke, which most comic fans have because it's the highest selling graphic novel of all time or whatever. You've read Killing Joke, and you know about some of the stuff that happened in Death of the Family. Death in the Family, I guess, the classic one. Get the two. I always get their names mixed up. But as long as you know that, about Jason Todd, and how he was killed by the Joker, and you know about Killing Joker and what happened there with Barbara Gordon, and you have a basic understanding of the history of Batman, I think you'll be able to just jump in with issue one. And I mean, we go through and we make sure that even if you haven't read those books, we kind of fill in those story points so that the reader can just pick it up. We didn't want to do a book that had to be a slave to the current Batman continuity. And in all honesty, I mean, we started this book 2 years ago. And so things have changed drastically in the Batman continuity. And that led to a lot of arguments and stuff. But in the end, we just said, no, we're just gonna stick with the story that we got because we really believe in it. And we're going to go forward with it. And we're going to tell the story that we want to tell. And we believe that we have a book that's a classic in the making. We feel like we have something really special. We're doing some things that have never been done. The end of issue 3 is going to blow minds. Like Geoff kept on saying to me. Geoff said that, like, when we were working on Justice League, he kept on asking me, like, what do you want to do? And I said, well, let's do Batman. It's like, yeah, but it's like, Jay, like, it's like, what am I going to do to Batman? Like Batman, everybody's had their hand in Batman, and unless I really feel like I have a story that is worthy to do a Batman story on, and something that's really, especially the Joker, something that's really going to add to this character and not just be a retread of past things and then a letdown of an ending. Like, he's like, I don't want to do it. And then all of a sudden he got this idea, and when he pitched it to me, it's funny because I had the same idea. I had the same idea in my head for it was just like Providence or whatever you'd call it. It was meant to be. We had the same idea brewing in our heads and separate from each other. And then we were like, yeah, this is the story. Like, this is going to be the story. And, we really feel like we're doing something that's going to be special. And some people will love it. Some people will hate it. But, you can take it or leave it. That's what, we've been saying for a while. Like, it's in continuity, but it's kind of not at the same time. It's its own thing. And if DC wants to run with it, which I believe that they will with what we're kind of setting up at the end, but I don't know how. But they haven't really. There's no real plan. I don't think right now. I think everything's just so much up in the air that they haven't really sat down and really taken it in. But we have an ending that's gonna. Yeah, it sets up so many cool things that DC can run with. So,
it'll be interesting. It might be a situation where the public reception may determine if DC runs with it as being continuity or not.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe this hypes up the book a little bit. It might also make DC sound a little bad too, but I don't know. But I think DC's been scared of this story because we're honestly doing stuff that goes outside of the box, and we're doing some stuff in this book that I think these, like, if we were doing this on the Batman Monthly, they probably would never allow us to do. But because we're doing these things in a Black Label book, they're okay with it. And I think it's the same thing. They're kind of going to wait and see if it resonates, and if it does, then maybe they'll borrow some pieces from it. It's kind of, we've always looked at it kind of like Killing Joke. it's like Killing Joke. You can take it as like its own thing. You know, even today you can read it as its own piece of Batman, and that book became such a massive seller that people just kind of took those ideas and went with them after. Maybe if that book wasn't, people responded badly to it, they probably would have said, okay, well, that's just an Elseworld story, and Barbara Gordon is okay, so it's the same kind of thing. Like continuity is good, and it's got its place, but I personally feel from a storytelling perspective that it makes you a slave. You can't dare to do different things. Like you can't, like I've worked on books where we couldn't do things because of, that goes against what we're doing over here. And it's like, well, but this would be a really cool story beat, or a plot point. No, we can't do that because this affects this, and this, and this, and this, and this. The fun thing about working with Geoff Johns is that when he says, I want to do this, they pretty much say yes. Go for it. He's got a lot of sway. And so it's kind of freeing to be in that position where we could just tell the story that we always wanted to tell. And if people like it, that's great. If people hate it, okay, I'll still love it. Whether or not people like it or love it or whatever, I think people will like it. I think they really will. I feel like this story is really a love letter to the history of Batman and the Joker. And Geoff has that ability to kind of see comics from the eyes of a 14-year-old fan, from a 14-year-old reader perspective. And it's like, he can look at a character and look at a story and say, well, if I was 14 years old, what would I want to see, Superman do? What would I want to see Green Lantern do? What would I, one of the things I always loved was when he had Batman put on the Green Lantern ring, right?
Yeah.
And it's like that's something that as a 14-year-old kid, you would probably be talking to your buddies and be like, wouldn't it be cool if Batman got a Green Lantern ring? What would that look like?
Yeah.
So he does that. Same with like the whole thing with Batman getting on the
Mobius chair.
The Mobius chair. It's kind of like
What?
Yeah, and it was kind of like a little like poke almost at like the whole Bat God kind of thing, right? Like it was like it's like a joke in a way, and it was also like hey, what if, what would it be like if Batman got on the chair? That's really cool. So
and what happened when he got on the chair was, one, he knew everything, and two, he was even more of a dick.
Yeah, exactly. So he's able to do that. When we went through, we had a list of like what are cool things we always wanted to see between Batman and the Joker. And so we've really gotten into that, and it makes for a really fun. It's going to be a really fun story, but it's also a very deep story. I don't know if you want to get into a little bit of like the sales pitch behind the book, but
Please.
We've been talking when we've been doing interviews. We've been talking a lot about the fact that this book it's actually a deeper emotional story. One of the main themes of the book are the scars on both mental and physical. And we picked the characters that we're working with in this book because they have scars, both mental and physical, that the Joker has left behind. We have Batman and all the battles and fights that he's had with Joker over the years. And we have Barbara Gordon, who was affected majorly by Joker and Killing Joke, being paralyzed. And like, what does that do to somebody? What does that do to a character? And then Jason Todd and what the Joker did to him. And we're kind of exploring like how Geoff says it's like how you heal right and how you heal wrong. How does tragedy affect us? How does it, for some people, tragedy can be the thing that propels them on to be a greater person. It can bring focus to their life. It can give them something to overcome, and they become stronger because of it. And then others, like a Jason Todd, a Red Hood figure, it's like tragedy, it boils in his soul, and it's like, he uses that tragedy in different ways that Barbara Gordon or Batman use tragedy. So we're exploring that in this story, and it really is an emotional story, and there's things in this book that I think people will be surprised at, and how we approach different things, and these themes kind of go right through the book from front to back. One of the things I've really learned with Geoff is that it's really cool to have awesome visuals and plot and all that kind of stuff, but he really has hammered home the fact that unless you have a deep emotional hook in your story that hooks the reader, then you'll have a hollow story. And ever since he's kind of said that, every movie and every book that I read, I ask myself that question: what is the emotional hook? What is the thing that connects us, the audience, to the characters? And so we really feel like we have a really great emotional hook. We have these characters displaying emotions and displaying feelings and things that you've never seen them do. And not all of these characters have an arc through this story, and it's been a lot of fun to get into their minds and explore these characters. Like, I love Batman. Batgirl, I've never read any of her books, but I've always kind of liked the character, I think, because of the fact that she was on the animated series when I was a kid. So I had a little bit of a connection to Batgirl, but it's not something that I ever really dug into as a character. I didn't really care to ever read a Batgirl comic. But through this, learning about her, really getting into her mind and into her character, I've really come to love this character, and I love what she stands for, and she's really the heart of this book in so many ways. And then same with Jason Todd, Red Hood. I always found him to be kind of lame. Like I never cared for Jason Todd or for Red Hood. I always sat there thinking, like, why is this, like, I don't know, he's just this angsty guy who shoots everybody, and why is he even wearing a Batman logo on his chest? Like I don't know. I never really cared for him. But then through this, as Geoff kind of explained to me his view of the character and where we were going to go with him, and again, that those emotional scars that are on him, and so that how that informs his thinking. Again, I really fell in love with this character. And one of Geoff's strengths, I think, is taking those B and C list characters, sometimes even D list characters, and making you love them. If you notice in a lot of the stories, like Blackest Night, his main characters in that book wasn't Green Lantern, it was the Flash and the Atom and Mira.
Yeah.
Like three kind of like, Flash is arguably maybe an A or a B list character, and then you got like Mira. I didn't even know about this character. And the Atom, he's probably like a C or a D list character too. But by the end of that, you became fans of those characters. You're like, man, these characters are awesome. I love them. And he has an ability to do that with these characters that are kind of lesser characters. He knows how to raise them up to the status of like an A-level character within the story, and it's really exciting to see that, especially to draw that too. Because while you're drawing it, you're thinking, yes, this is going to be somebody's first introduction to this character, and maybe this will help them fall in love with this character from here on out. It's really cool.
What you're getting me sort of interested in here as you're talking about things that are maybe going to change continuity-wise with characters is the opportunity for that to affect the mainline continuity. If you look at something like we've talked so much about Killing Joke, And so obviously the big scene there is what Joker does to Barbara, and it was after Killing Joke had come and gone. It was John Ostrander in his Suicide Squad run who had picked up that ball and ran with the Oracle thing. That was where Oracle first comes in. Her first actual appearance, you don't even see her. It's a voice coming through a speaker saying this is Oracle, and then you sort of get drip-fed little clues as time goes on about who it is. So he had taken what happened with a major character in Killing Joke, and I don't think it was ever really clear before that if Killing Joke was even in continuity, because you had so many ambiguous things. Like, people argued for a long time on what the ending meant, if Batman had killed Joker at the end. So it wasn't until John Ostrander started this whole Oracle thing that the story was accepted as being, clearly this is continuity, because we now have Barbara in a wheelchair. So it could present a cool opportunity, if other creators really identify with the things that, with potentially earth-shattering things that you guys are doing in Three Jokers, we could see that have an effect, ripple out into the main continuity.
Yeah, and there are going to be some of those things in there. So again, you never know. Like, people might really like it. They might want to run with some of those ideas or expand on them. They might not, but we're really proud of our story. Really, it does have a beginning, middle, and end. We don't leave too many things up to ambiguity. Like, we do put a definitive endings on all of these things, but I can see people taking it and kind of expanding on it, and that's cool. Like, that's kind of what we want, right? You kind of want that to happen. So yeah, it'll be exciting. I'm excited to hear people's opinions. My biggest fear is that people, because it's taken us so long, people will be expecting like the greatest Batman story ever told, and then if we don't hit that, then it's going to be a flop in their minds. Like, I don't like. It's just a story, and we've tried to do some really cool things in it and expand on the mythology and whatnot. But we just want you to pick it up and read it and enjoy it, and have a good time with it. It's a dense read, and hopefully it'll take you a little while to get through it. And it's not going to take you 15 minutes to read it, kind of thing. So yeah, I don't know. I'm really excited. I'm confident in this thing. I've been confident since day one, and I've been really sounding the horn at DC. Like, listen, like, this is something really special that we got here. I don't want to sound too overconfident in my skills, but I really feel like we got something special. But get behind us, really help us push this thing, help us to make this thing really special, because I think it's something that the fans have been wanting. I think it's something that fans, I think fans deserve great stories. Like, we really feel like we want to tell quality over quantity with something like this, and into the future as well. And so, yeah, I'm really excited. I'm happy that it's finally getting close to being done and come out.
I think it's a good time for a book to come out that does daring things with characters and changes the status quo, because I think this is a time, maybe more so than any other, that people have become a little more acclimated and a little more accepting to changes. I don't know how much of other current books you've had time to keep up with lately, but just a couple weeks ago we had Sean Murphy back on the show to talk about the end of his Curse of the White Knight series, and he had done something very major in that story that he was similarly worried how angry people might be. So he had this story goes back through the history of Gotham and the history of the Waynes when Gotham was being formed, and it goes back to the first families who were forming the city, who were founding Gotham. And what you find out towards the end of the story is Bruce was always lied to. Well, his family was basically a lie from the beginning. His actual ancestors had murdered Edmund Wayne, who was, sort of the first Wayne in Gotham. Had murdered Edmund Wayne, took his name, his identity, his fortune, and built Gotham with that. So you have Bruce finding out that he was never really a Wayne, and that shakes him up. But then by the end of the story, he's learning it doesn't matter what my name is. What matters is that Batman is the protector of Gotham.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a sort of an expectation that people might react badly to this, but I really don't recall seeing much in the way of complaining about it. It was sort of there was the shock of it, but I didn't see people react very poorly to it. So that's hopeful.
Yeah, I think. Well, maybe if that was like the main continuity Batman, maybe people would have been a little more up in arms, about it or whatever. But I think if people are when they're reading, reading Black Label books or an Elseworld kind of tale, I think you're open to those things. In fact, I think you almost expect there to be some different takes on it because it makes it a little bit more exciting, right? It makes it like you're rediscovering a version of this character that you think but here's some really interesting and cool twists to it. I like that when I'm reading a sort of an out of continuity take on a character. I dig that. We to be honest with you, like we always meant this book to be. We always meant this book to be the status quo in the continuity, and then things just got because we were taking so long to do it. I think DC just kind of decided to kind of move on without us, and I believe that that's a mistake. I think we really have some cool things here. We're taking some chances, and I believe that you need to take some chances with characters, and I think that you need to shake things up. When things are good, I think when good things happen to characters, I think that's cool. It doesn't always have to be bad things that happen to characters to shake them up either, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can do some good. Like, it's good when a hero actually does something good and is rewarded for it too. So many times we expect, just like the worst of the worst to happen to these characters. I don't like reading a Superman story where awful things happen. Like I like good things that happen to Superman because he's a good person, he's a good guy, right? But I think I think you're right. I do think that we on purpose have done some things in these issues to really rile up fans. It's kind of like, I don't know if it is kind of fun to see reactions to things because they're reacting to things before they've read the whole story, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of fun to put in little things that get them going because that when they read the finale or whatever, where you're going with it, right? And so in the end, everything will be okay or you'll really set the record straight. But it's kind of fun to do those little things, and you got a couple good ones in these books. But also it's like we want it to be a journey, we want it to be an adventure, we want it to really impact you as a reader, and I love that. I love those kinds of comics, and I miss those kinds of comics. To be totally honest with you, I miss them. I don't know if it's because I've been working in the industry for so long now. It's been over 10, I think it's 10 years actually. Around this time is when I really started. And I've just found that my reading of comics has kind of it's really slowed down. I find I'm reading things outside of the superhero genre when it comes to comics. Like, I haven't really paid too much attention to what's going on in the main Batman books or for any books, really, to be honest with you. And I feel like I feel like this book here is more akin to what I want to be seeing in comics. I feel like Three Jokers is like this is like our statement of like, this is what we want to see in comics. Like, this is what writers should be striving for and how they're writing and how they're telling a story. Like I read it. Like the last, Doomsday Clock was a book that I loved every issue of it, and I couldn't wait to get it, and I couldn't wait to read it. And actually, like, Geoff would send me the completed PDFs like weeks before the book would come out, so I'd get a chance to read this book. But then I would go to the store. I'd still order 3 copies of it, one for reference and then 2 for to put away, to collect, kind of thing. And so, like, Doomsday Clock, I felt really had a lot of that in it, and I loved the ending of it, and I felt it was just. I felt like Doomsday Clock is kind of what it's like what comics I feel should be striving to be. It's like incredible, beautiful rendered art and a deep story that really touches on some emotional things and the heart of what it means to be a superhero and all this kind of things. And so Geoff's bringing that to this book as well. It's a dense book. There's lots, it's Geoff's really kind of turned on his Alan Moore key in his brain, and it's like he's really, like, he was telling me like how when he's writing dialogue in Three Jokers, he says it takes him taking him days just to write like the dialogue for like 1 page, because he's like really thinking about everything that's being said and how it's being said and what the implications of that are. Is there a better way to say this to get more emotion out of what this character is saying? And there's a couple scenes here that really, like, he really captured. You can almost hear these characters speaking these lines like you would when you read like an Alan Moore comic. And so that gets me excited. It's like that's what I've been striving to get to in my career ever since I started. Like, I want to do these kinds of comics, books that when you read them, they leave you emotionally changed. They change your perspective on things. They affect your perspective on the character, but also that they're fun and they're exciting, and they give you that excitement that you had when you read a comic when you were 14. Like, I want to chase that feeling. I try to remember, like, what was that feeling like when I read, Batman Hush or Dark Knight Returns or Watchmen. The first time I read Hellboy, and Hellboy is one of my favorite comics. It's like the first time I read that, it just captured me. And hopefully I'm putting some of that excitement in the pages that I'm drawing, and people will see that and they'll respond to it. This book's a little different than anything I've drawn, like when it comes to the artwork. It's not a 4-panel widescrreen, kind of book that I really like to draw before. This is kind of continues in the, like I was saying, like in Killing Joke, there's a lot of 9-panel pages and 6-panel square grids and very little there. I don't think there's any splash pages. And we're kind of following that with this. There's a lot of 9-panel pages. Like, it takes me 2 or 3 days to draw a page normally with a 9-panel grid, because you really have to know what you're doing storytelling wise, and you really have to be able to make the eye flow through the panels. But man, when it does work and it does flow, like, it just feels so good to read it. And Geoff's got a lot of dialogue, and it feels like reading an older comic. And I think that's something that I feel it's something that needs to be maybe embraced a little more, looking back into the past and what made some of those old comics so iconic and beloved, and then take that and kind of use that in our modern books to take them up to a different level as well.
Well, we've already seen that you can definitely do good storytelling with the 9-panel grid stuff. The issues you did with Tom on Batman, the button issues, you got to do the 9-panel grid stuff there, and that worked very well.
Yeah, it's funny because I used to hate that when I first was kind of getting into comics. Like I kind of came into comics going with the mindset of Tim Sale, who really pushed. I know in like his Daredevil Yellow series and in some of his Batman stuff, but it was more or less those Marvel color series ones that he did. He mentions in one of the books there in the foreword that he really pushed Jeff Loeb to stick to a 3-panel layout. He really wanted to draw big art, and that's how I came into comics thinking. I was like, yeah, like this is art. It's an art form. Like I want big, huge panels and like big characters on the page, and every page, like the panel should all look like splash pages, and it should just be like big, big, big. And then once I did, and so like when I would read old books like Watchmen, I just found like, I don't know if it's because I had no attention span as a young person, but like I found like all these 9-panel these grids, like so much reading, and but then in the end, like you felt like you read like, it's a 12-issue series, Watchmen, but you felt like you read like a 30-issue series of normal comics, because it was like you couldn't. It's a whatever it is, like a 20. I don't know if they're 22, 24-page issues, but it's like it feels like you read like a 45-page issue. And when I did that issue with Tom with the 9-panel grids, everything started to click, and all of a sudden I was like, wait, like you can tell so much more story with this, and you can really make this thing feel dense and feel like it's worth your time. Like now when I read a comic book and I can skim through the thing and read it in 10 minutes because there's very little words and it's all just big pictures, I feel cheated. I feel like, why did I, like, this is not worth my $3.99 Canadian, whatever it is. Robin, you know how much comics are nowadays. But it's like I there's a time and place for those kind of comics, but when it comes to stuff like this, you really felt like he wanted, like these books are 48-page issues, but I think they'll feel like they're all 60-page issues. Like there's a lot of storytelling, and with the 9-panel grids too, another thing you can do is you can tell a wordless story, and they can be much deeper, because if you have 9 panels on a page, like the first, like that preview page there that we showed with the Batmobile crashing through the gravestones, like that's going to be a wordless page.
I was wondering about that. We were actually, just before we added you on, we were going over what happens in those 3 pages that were released. And I was wondering, like, these look like they could be textless pages, because, the first one is first the shot of the tombstone, and then the Batmobile crashing through it, and then you have Batman getting out, and he's bloody, and he comes into the cave, and Alfred helps him in, and then starts cutting the suit off him. And all of this looks like it could be just visual storytelling.
Yeah, in fact, I think most of those opening pages are going to be visual storytelling, with very minimal words until the story kind of starts picking up. And that's something that like those pages were things that Jeff pitched to me right from day one, and we stuck right to them. And you can do that. You can take pauses, you can take little breaks with a 9-panel grid, and you don't feel like you're wasting a panel having wordless storytelling. But at the same time, like as an artist, you can really lead the eye from one panel to the next, and guide the viewer through it. And in fact, the longer that they stay, like the opening pages of Killing Joke are wordless as well. it isn't until he goes into that room and grabs the chair, and then it says, I forget what it says there, but there's some words just kind of written in the black of the room, and that's when the words start kind of like the narration starts going and the talking, and so we kind of wanted to follow that same thing, and but you can do that. You don't feel like you're wasting. You don't feel like you're wasting a page, or like when you got a 22-page comic, you want to do a wordless page. You feel like you're like wasting space, like because you need to get a lot of story in those 22 pages. So but it's a different kind of storytelling. I don't know if I necessarily will want to do it all the time, but it's got a lot more pros than I think it does cons. And I think I think from here on out, like I know Geoff and I have talked about this, like future projects that we do together, we're going to probably stick to this kind of layout. Like use a bunch of 9-panel grids, but maybe we'll go to some more splash pages and 2-page spreads and things like that. We don't have many of them in these books, and we did that on purpose. But I don't know. I really have fallen in love with that storytelling structure,